Hey guys, welcome back to Kamerastore, and we are here with Nuno, employee of Kamerastore. We're going to be talking about SLRs, which stand for
Single lens reflex. What that actually means, we have a mirror here which actually reflects the light through the prism finder or a waist level finder, and when you take a photo it lifts off the mirror and it passes the image to the film plane.
Yeah.
So I think this is by far the most popular type of camera. Since it was introduced in the early 50s, this has been the go-to from pretty much every single camera brand. This took over the Rangefinder, which was at the time getting old, and this just allowed for multiple bonuses, which were you can actually see the whole photo and the whole depth of field through the finder, and yeah.
And you can exchange the lenses, which is, I mean,
Yes.
they're single. You only use one lens, not like the TLRs or other models that we'll mention later. But like the SLR, as you said, lets you see the shot,
Yes.
which is a huge benefit if you use the rangefinders. Just to mention quickly, there's a whole article about this at kamerastore.com. There's a blog article, so you can check it out below at the link. But yeah, to me, the fact that you can see what you're shooting is a huge bonus. And one important thing when you're shooting SLRs is the fact of the crop. Because sometimes
Yes.
the viewfinder crops a little bit, so there's a few cameras that give you 100% view, but you always have to leave a little extra space just in case. Like with this one, you get, I think, a 90%.
Yeah, you can get a 90% with the meter prism and 95% with the meterless prism here.
And if you use the waist level finder, at least on the Pentax, I think you get 100%.
Yes.
And another thing is, it was widely available from different kind of cameras. We have very different cameras here on the table. We have, to your left, a...
Yeah, this I think represents the last era of film cameras. This is like a highly modernized camera with plenty of features, but still featuring a autofocus, which we have to mention later in this video why it's so important with the SLR system. Then we have a manual focus, big negative size, but still it's the same principle.
Yeah, medium format, by the way.
Yes, and we have a Hasselblad, which it doesn't look like anything on the table, but still there's a mirror.
Yep.
And the basic principle is exactly the same.
Yeah, you just take off the lens, if I can. Oh, it's probably not advanced, sorry guys. So you take off the lens and you see the mirror, and if I take off the back, I can shoot, and you'll see what Nuno said, which means that the mirror goes up and the light goes through and your image gets made on your film. So SLR, which is amazing. And then the Nikon.
The Nikon Nikormat, which represents like the classic of the the golden era of SLR, which was in the 70s.
Yeah, and last but not least, I think we should mention that SLR is the design of how the cameras work, but that was brought when digital came in to digital cameras.
Yeah, and now we're at the digital era or the autofocus era. We have to mention that because of the mirror, there was a specially sensor for the autofocus, which was lightning fast. It was faster than any other type of deal, and the light hits, it bounces through a sensor here. It bounces in the bottom of the camera, and it was enabling a lightning fast autofocus, which are the big reasons to get into a SLR cameras. These were workhorses in the sport business because you need some very fast tracking, and a mirror camera will allow you to use that lightning fast autofocus system.
No, yeah, and I think it's also important to mention that you do get blackout when you shoot, because of course when you're shooting the mirror goes up and down. So if you're shooting 10 frames a second or if you're shooting 1 frame a second, you have blackout and then it comes back. So a lot of people nowadays are maybe transferring to the mirrorless digital system, which you're seeing an EBF, so you're not ever seeing real, directly. It's like a little screen, but it doesn't have blackout. One thing to mention, I think there's a couple examples that actually saved the blackout.
Yes, I was about to mention that there was some couple of models which has a semi-translucent mirror. So instead of the mirror going up every time, it will just got passed through the mirror.
Yeah.
And that will allow even faster. There was some models with up to in the range of 15 frames per second and
Yeah.
in the 90s.
And we're talking about film, where film had to be transported,
Yes.
which is impressive because
Yes.
the light goes through that pellicle, it
It
goes
was
into
just
the
shutter,
film.
shutter moving here, but the pellic mirror, translucent mirror is staying.
Yeah,
put.
it's not going up and down, which is, to me, the technology is amazing. That didn't really stick for very long, but those
Yep.
cameras are still working, and it gives you that benefit of seeing.
Yeah, and I have to jump onto the. There was a Sony brand which actually uses the SLT, which is a semi-translucent technology, even in the 2000s of
Yeah.
cameras.
And then, I mean, we mentioned the film formats. There's 35.
Yes,
There is medium format.
Yes.
There's even some large format SLRs.
There is, let's say, the Graflex type of cameras, and even smaller cameras which uses a half frame type of deal. Let's say we have I think the Samurai camera.
Yeah.
It uses the same kind of principle with the viewing and the prism finder.
Yeah. And I mean, the benefits are great. Being a rangefinder user myself, it is great to shoot a lot of street photography, but when you want to shoot maybe portraits, or you want to shoot like precise things, or you're like maybe framing still photography, or like a
Yes.
still life. So like for users, who do you think is this system for?
I think this is for everyone. There's a reason that these have been stick from the 50s to this day. Now we're getting, of course, the mirrorless train is coming fast, but yeah, for everyone who, like you said, portraiture, and this allows you to use the maximum aperture, because in the rangefinder there's a quite finicky to use very large, like f1.2 lenses. It's very hard to nail the focus completely on the rangefinder,
Yeah.
but you can actually see on the nice bright prism finder the exact perfect focus.
Yeah, and another thing to note with SLRs or DSLRs is as the mirror has to go up and down, there's a vibration, which is, I'd say, more of a problem, but is easily solvable by just knowing about it.
Yes, I think this particular camera gets a bad reputation in the online forums of the great mirror slap, but
Hit it, let's hear it. Well, maybe we need...
we don't need the battery for this, but the actual sound is coming when the mirror is hitting the upper position. And
Yeah.
I've been a user of this system for a long time. I never encountered that problem. I'm not saying that there is no problem, but
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those things that gets repeated on the forums.
To me, it's more like telling you guys that that is a thing that happens, because maybe people are coming from phone photography, or maybe they're mirrorless and they get one of these and they think they can hand hold a very long, short like time, like half a second or eighth of a second. The general rule, which applies to pretty much every SLR, is usually 1 divided by the focal length. So if you're using a 50 millimeter, 150 should be the level there. If you go slower, you might get a little bit. For that, sometimes a lot of lenses in the SLR world came with image stabilizer, which is amazing.
At least on when Canon came out with the EF series of SLR cameras, there was added the image stabilizing, which carried around today, which is like the standard thing to have in a camera nowadays. But back in the day, it was a big deal to have you can, like you said, with the SLR type of camera, you cannot shoot that low because there is some vibration. Unlike the leaf shutter cameras, it's just a so tiny amount of inertia in the shutter, so it doesn't move that much.
Yeah, and here there's a proper mechanical
there's a sound
movement inside the camera.
You cannot use these in a very quiet environment. Like if I were in let's say a funeral, I would maybe use nowadays a mirrorless camera to lower the noise. Yeah,
you guys probably, if have you ever seen a politician talking or anything like that, you can hear the press shooting away and hearing those mirrors go pop, 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 like it was, shots being fired. That is why I think the mirrorless world is slowly coming back. Also, I've seen on movie sets that they sold these huge cases, that would hold so that you wouldn't make that sound on a movie, which is an interesting fact. If you've ever seen that, you're like, what is that? That's what it's for. So yeah, mirrorless is making that move for the sound, but I think SLRs have a huge lineup of cameras and lenses, and they did shift rangefinders to the side. They became more of a niche product, the rangefinders, and these became the mainstream for everything from, magazines to photojournalists to anything.
Yeah, and I think nowadays the mirrorless train is very much a big force taking over, but there is still professions that still need to use, like let's say sport photographers really need those because the tracking capabilities are so great.
Yeah.
Because on the mirrorless cameras focus based on the contrast in the sensor. So when there's a low light or so much fast tracking, it cannot just follow through. Of course, there's major improvements, let's say in the last 5 years.
Yeah. And I think another thing to note is SLRs is like, it's interchangeable lens mount. So you have to make sure that depending on which one you use, search a little bit about what lenses might be available for your system. We have like a Contax mount here. We have a Pentax 6x7 and a Hasselblad Nikon. So when you're getting into SLRs, you want to know maybe which mount is it adaptable to other stuff, because some of them, like the Nikon, can be adapted to Canon. So you want to know a little bit of what you're doing. You just don't want to get into the first one you see, which is always, tempting. It's like you get excited about a camera, you look into it, you see it, and then you maybe make a mistake. But I think it's great. It's a great system. Let us know if you are an SLR. Maybe you're moving from mirrorless and you don't really like that, hybrid system of looking through a little screen, which is not the real life what's happening in front of you. Another thing to note is there's no lag because you're actually seeing the image. Mirrorless sometimes has that little bit of lag. So yeah, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. And remember, there's a whole article at kamerastore.com. Thank you, Nuno, and see you in the next one, guys. Bye.